Got a quorum. We're going to open up the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Compensation. I'm going to ask Senator Albers if he'd open us up in a word of prayer.
Please bow your heads. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for your provision of rain. Thank you for the opportunity to come serve. Please give us your wisdom and discernment on this day so we make good decisions for the people of our state. It's your most holy name we make our prayers. Amen.
Amen. I want to thank all of you for coming at this early morning. We had a meeting last week and y'all all were here. Ben's on his way. He'll be here. Senator Watson. We have three that I want to talk about first with Representative Mallow. We've got H.R. 24, H.R. 25, H.R. 26. You've already made a presentation, but would you like to speak towards these three resolutions and make it brief as possible since you've already given a presentation, but welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning to the entire Appropriations Subcommittee on Compensation. As you all know, these three individuals and
Podium mic.
Oh, hold on. Which mic is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I couldn't tell that y'all couldn't hear me. So again, good morning, Senate Appropriations Subcommittee. Thankful for you all coming out early this morning to hear the resolutions for the three individuals that I'm fighting to help bring some stabilization to their lives. So I just ask you this morning for your favorable consideration on these three resolutions, that they may pass the Senate so we can correct an injustice for over 25 years ago. And I appreciate your consideration this morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I will tell you that I've gotten several phone calls on these three resolutions. So I want to, and I did talk to several committee members about these three individuals in this case. And I'd like to open it up for comment on the committee. Senator Albers.
Thank you for bringing these forward. The person who prosecuted these cases originally that knew that, they were coercing basically a witness to say what he said, those folks involved, were they ever brought to justice?
No, that is, there's something called prosecutorial immunity, in which you cannot hold a prosecutor liable for the actions or the inactions they may have taken while in office as a district attorney at the time.
Are those folks still in office today?
They are not. They are not in office today. And the police department made changes to the officers as well. Some of those officers were terminated subsequently after that.
Thank you very much.
Senator C.
I was just going to make a do-pass motion once you're ready.
All right. Well, anybody else have any questions? Senator Watson? Okay. I will entertain a motion on these three, H.R. 24, H.R. 25, H.R. 26. Let me read the LC numbers. LC 345723, LC 345724, LC 345725. And these are all three together, and I will entertain one motion on these three resolutions.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I have a motion on all three from Senator C. Do I hear a second? A second from Senator Watson. Do we have any discussion, further discussion? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, it's unanimous. Thank you, Representative Mallow, for bringing these three forward, and we will get with the Chairman of Appropriations, and we will discuss this in our big appropriations meeting, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Beach.
Okay. The last one we have is we're just going to have some more discussion on this one. I've gotten some feedback, some folks that are not as favorable to this one, but I do want to give Representative Hughley a chance to talk about H.R. 29, LC 345726, and we will have some discussion, but we will not be taking action on this one today. Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the committee. H.R. 29 is for Jakeith Robinson. It was H.R. 18 last year. It passed the House last year and again this year. Basically, we have a case of double jeopardy, and we also have a case where a person sat in jail for years, and his case for appeal was never docketed, and there was never any explanation for why we didn't docket his case. The state of Georgia has a responsibility to citizens when they are in our when they are arrested, and in our judicial system, we have a responsibility to follow the rules of due process. And when the Court of Appeals overturn his conviction. They admonished the members of the court. They admonished the prosecutorial team, and they admonished everybody involved because there was no choice but to overturn the case. He had been tried the first time as an individual defendant. The second time, they put him in with another defendant, and they tried him again using the same theory of party to a crime. There was never any evidence against him. There was never any witnesses against him. But the second time, he was found guilty of armed robbery. But the judge in the second case, when he agreed to allow his case to go with another defendant, the judge said, we're going to continue the case, but we're going to give you an interlocutory appeal. So the case moved forward, and he filed the paperwork for his appeal in 2001. In 2005, it still wasn't docketed. He did not get a hearing until 2014, and that's when the courts overturned his case. So, if the court said that, if the higher court said that the lower court was in error in terms of allowing him to be tried twice under the same theory, and we, as the state of Georgia, could not find a way to docket his case, I submit that we do have responsibility. Whether or not you think he was let off on a technicality, we do have responsibility, because otherwise he would have been released 10 years earlier.
Right. Listen, these are all tough cases, and I understand that, and I understand your passion. I appreciate your passion. There is a difference between the three we just voted on and this one, in my opinion, and I think the will of the committee agrees with me on that. And I understand the double jeopardy, but there was a technicality here, and I want to open it up and have folks talk about this. I also have Randy Robinson, I think, is out in the hallway. Is Randy out there? He wanted to come and speak to this also. So, but I'll open it up for questions first from the committee. Yes, ma'am. Senator Davenport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Which, is that 11? Yeah, 11.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just need some clarification of this. You say they are different. I see they're different from the other three cases, but the people that are calling opposing this, are they bad police officers or judges, or I mean, if we wrong someone, but the state of Georgia, I think we need to correct it.
Right.
So, and we're not voting on it. I'm trying to figure out why.
Well,
If you
let me
kinda explain-
let me tell you where we're at on this one. I've talked to the chairman of Appropriations, and we can have another meeting up till Thursday, but right now, we don't have the support to go forward on this. I can tell you out of the committee members I've talked to, and I've talked to the sponsor of the resolution, and if the votes aren't there, we are not going to vote on it at this point, okay? And because I'm not going to have her lose. I'm just not going to do that to her. And so, and we are going to hear from a witness, our testimony from Senator Robinson, after I take a question from Senator Powell, which is number 13. Yes.
Thank you. The difference between your case, Representative Hughley, and Representative Mallow is your defendants were white males, am I right? And yours is a black individual.
Yes.
I see it as very racist. I do.
Yeah, call it what you
I
see.
do.
Yeah.
And I don't understand, nobody has talked to me since we met last week about this case, so I don't know who you're talking to, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I told everybody on this committee to come talk to me about it, and
No,
several did.
I don't recall that.
And I can just say this.
I'm not arguing,
Okay.
I'm just lost in the process.
I
And
can-
every year, when it's time for compensation, we go through this same scenario. I don't like it. I think it's biased. I think you guys get together and decide that if it is a black anything, anybody, and you know I don't usually say racist things about anybody.
Right.
This is a racist matter, and I don't like the way it's being played out.
Well, I can tell you in our hearings, I don't think anybody ever mentioned whether the three gentlemen, what race they were. I
We
don't.
got pictures.
I didn't see any
Pass out
pictures.
I
We didn't pass any pictures out. I did not, as chairman. I did not see
I
pictures. So,
expect you to say that.
okay. All right, well, thank you, Ms. Hughley, Representative Hughley. I'm going to ask Senator Robinson to come to the podium. He is asked to speak on this H.R. 29.
Why is he speaking on the bill? I don't know.
To the disappointment, Mr. Chairman, first of all, I want to thank you. Thought it was in another room. And to the disappointment of some senators on the panel, I hate to point out, race has absolutely nothing to do against this. And what I like is those who are not connected with the criminal justice system seem to be the most informed and the experts, which in this Capitol, what I have discovered is there are a whole lot of experts. The case in Savannah, is the way it was explained to me, was an intentional dishonest action by a district attorney in not providing discovery in a murder case, and of eyewitnesses coming back saying that they had lied. I found out the race of the individuals in the Savannah case yesterday. The reason I knew the defendants in the case out of Muskogee County is because I was a law enforcement officer in Muskogee County when the Brink security guard was murdered. Because friends of mine with the Columbus Police Department were at their annual Christmas party just down the road where the Columbus Police Department used to be, having a Christmas party when Jakeith Robinson drove Leon Toilette and Xavier Womack up to the bank, dropped them off, and pulled over and waited. And when the security guard, Mr. Hamilton, walked into the bank, got out of the vehicle, walked into the bank, came out of the bank with the money, thinking it would be, he had 3 more days that week before he was able to celebrate Christmas with his 3 daughters and his newborn granddaughter. When Leon Toilette walked up behind him, he shot him in the back of the head twice. And as he fell to the ground, he shot him in the back twice. And as he laid on the ground dying, he shot him again. And then Leon took off because 2 other security guards nearby saw what happened and started firing, and Xavier Womack started firing also as he ran and jumped in the car being driven by Jakeith Robinson, and Jakeith Robinson drove him away while Leon Toilette was being arrested by police officers Bob Oliver, Robert Jackson, a cadet, and Detective Sherry Ziegler with the Columbus Police Department. Leon Toilette identified Jakeith Robinson as a getaway driver. Jakeith Robinson's girlfriend identified her boyfriend as the getaway driver, who met with Leon Toilette when he came to Alabama from Florida, and they decided to plan an armed robbery. Jakeith Robinson's issue is not an issue of guilt or innocence. It's an issue of an appellate court leaving an appeal laying on a desk for 10 years, which there's no excuse for that. Absolutely not. The court failed in its process. But who did not fail in this process is the Columbus Police Department. Who did not fail in this process was a jury of Jakeith Robinson's peers who found him guilty at his second trial when he was separated away from Leon Toilette, who had been already convicted and sentenced to death in Georgia. So the only reason I asked for a delay is I've got the trial transcript, and I'll be happy to quote from the trial transcript to this committee. And I've got retired detective who investigated this murder willing to come in here and testify before this committee. Because I do believe if somebody is incarcerated because of possibly criminal actions by a district attorney or a law enforcement officer or anybody else, they deserve compensation. And I think it's the citizens of Georgia's responsibility to hold those individuals in those positions who commit those acts accountable for what they do. But what I do not believe in is the fact that 3 women who grew up without their father should have to sit back, first of all, and find out after this individual's been released from prison that he was released, and now have to find out that because of a technicality in the court system, not from the jurors who found him guilty, not from the evidence, not from the testimony, that now they have to do it. But the easy answer is always to yell race, especially when the guy who's bringing it up has a mixed family, as mixed as anybody in this room. But I don't take the easy way out. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand up in front and I'll state the facts, and I appreciate the opportunity to stand here today. And I would ask that we delay this, if we can, until I can have the opportunity to have the trial transcript here. And I spoke to the detective. At one time, I thought it was going to be Monday, but I can call him again today and see if I can get him up here sooner if I need to.
Okay.
But I appreciate the opportunity,
Thank you
Mr.
for your
Chairman.
testimony.
And I'm
Thank
open to
you
any
for
questions if you
that.
want.
Is this a question towards, okay, Senator C.?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I know you're the expert, so my simple question is, help me understand double jeopardy.
Yes, ma'am. Double jeopardy is when you try an individual for the exact same case twice when they have been exonerated for that case prior. If I were charged with armed robbery and I was found not guilty of armed robbery, and then you brought back that exact same charge based on the exact same evidence.
One last follow-up, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. I'm trying to understand somebody who's been incarcerated nearly, what, how many years was it total? 20 years. How do you get that back without being compensated? I mean, is there another way to compensate somebody for mishaps throughout the penal system to be made whole, or at least some semblance of regret of 20 years of your life?
I think our regret should lie when we put innocent people in prison. I have no regret when guilty people go to prison.
Okay.
You're saying he was guilty?
Absolutely.
Here's what we're going to do, because we've got to leave this room for another committee to come in, and we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But Ms. Hughley, Representative Hughley, if you'll get with me, we've got till Thursday. Let me just say this: the posture right now of the chair is that we are not going to have another committee meeting unless the will of the committee comes to me and we feel there's a need to have another one. But right now, I don't see this moving forward on this one, but I'm willing to, again, meet with you, and we will call a meeting if we can come to some kind of agreement. Okay, all right. Let's do that, and then we're going to wrap this up, and we're going to adjourn. Okay, yes. Let Representative Hughley take the podium, and then you make your comment, and then we're going to adjourn.
I just want to say that, I have confidence in the Columbus Police Department. I live there. But the first court tried him separately, not what he said. He was tried separately. And when the DA could not get a conviction the first time, they joined his case with the other defendant. So I just wanted to make that clarification, and that is how you come to this double jeopardy.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. One comment.
Just one final comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
It's my own fault that I did not investigate all of this, but if I had known the race of these police officers, and since I see that it's racism, I would not have voted on that last bill. I just want to make that comment for the record.
Okay.
Because I have plenty friends that are police officers, FBI agents, and all of that, and I think the system needs to be fair.
Thank you. And listen, I'm just going to close on this. These are all tough decisions, but I appreciate y'all's time. I appreciate y'all's work on this. And thank you, Representative Mallow. Thank you, Representative Hughley. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Welcome to Government Oversight. And we had to kind of get our people together, so we're working there. Senator Hickman, if you will, open us in a word of prayer, and then we'll run from there, okay? Thank you, sir.
Did you press on as an exhibition? You only have 5 minutes.
Representative people of Georgia. Lord, just provide us with the wisdom and the knowledge, and Father, to do the right thing, and Father, we can glorify you in all we say and do. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, the first one is one in which we will, is HB 44, which is a bill that we're all experiencing right now with all the fun. So we're going to ask Representative Cantrell to come up, and there's been a couple of changes there, and if you'll bring those forward and tell us about it, and we appreciate it, and thank you for the light, bringing the light of day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, am I on? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today we're subbing the bill. Senator Watson and I have worked together on this, and I don't have the sub in front of me, but the sub is basically the same as SB 100. We're subbing it to the Senate version of the bill. And basically the bill would take us to standard time pending congressional approval to go to daylight saving time. Pretty simple. If you guys want me to go into more explanation, I can, but we talked it through pretty hard yesterday.
You're looking at 458S.
Yeah, 0458S.
0458S, and Dr. Watson, you're on.
Thank you. Thank you, number one, for allowing me to be ex officio on this committee, and I appreciate that.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Third meeting this morning already, so things are picking up a little bit. Representative Cantrell, this will be his bill. It is House Bill 44, and we're just substituting in the language from the Senate that's already passed. And there are several reasons for doing this. Number one, to keep the bill alive. Number two, to continue to a discussion in the state of Georgia, which I think we all need. And as we know, all the states surrounding us have moved to daylight savings time if and when, if ever, Congress will allow us to move to that. And this bill does that. The medical facts are is that changing time back and forth is not good for your health, and we all know that. We're experiencing that right now with the time change day before yesterday. And I will tell you, I'll be straight with you and transparent. You know, Representative Cantrell and I have been working on this. This bill does make it long enough that if indeed it does come to a non-binding referendum, then this bill is long enough by Senate rules that it allows us to consider that if it ever comes to a conference. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. At the appropriate time. At the appropriate time. Okay. Senator Dugan, you're making a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move do pass.
Do pass. All right. And we got a second by Senator C. Okay. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed, raise your hand. And it passes. And daylight savings time, you're going to save it, I believe. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right. Representative Campbell, you want to come forward for us and tell us the wonderful things that are coming to us, sir?
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's good to be back with you today. We do have a substitute from the legislation we discussed yesterday on House Bill 92, and so the one I'm looking at is LC 338769S. We had two subs. One was exactly what the department had requested, which was that we basically leave the birth certificates at 125 years, as is currently in the law, and that they were willing to adjust the death certificates to 75 years. The other substitute was one that Senator Robertson and I discussed, which is the one in front of you, and that leaves both of the years specified as they currently are in this substitute, which is 100 years for the birth certificates and 75 years for the death certificates. But it adds a provision in here that will protect centenarians, and that is that the department will not transfer any centenarian's birth certificate to archives until that person is deceased. If you'll remember that yesterday we talked about there was a very small number of these individuals in our state, and so this would delineate those individuals who are still living, who are over 100 years of age. And the department is here. They do want to speak, I believe, to this bill because they do have a concern with the fiscal aspect of it. But I did want to mention that this substitute is what Senator Robertson and I had discussed. And I think, Mr. Chairman, he discussed it with you as well. So
Okay.
I'm fine with this, but that is the substitute we have before you guys today.
Okay. So, go ahead, Senator C.
Well, you just said a word that brought a thought to my mind. If the department is talking about a fiscal, you got a fiscal note, or should I just wait and hear from the department?
Let's talk to them. Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, okay, we'll let the department come up, and if you'll give us who you are, and so we'll have the records, please,
Okay,
ma'am.
perfect.
Thank
Katie
you.
Smith, Georgia Department of Public Health. This is not what we agreed to yesterday, but we've been able to look at it, and we are okay with it, but we need to put a line contingent upon funding. This would require 2 full-time staff to go through and manually go through the records.
Okay. We could do an amendment in committee, or how would you do it?
I got a question.
Okay.
Question.
If you don't change it, do you not require, you still have to have staff?
If you kept it at 125, no.
You don't have to have staff?
Right.
Why?
Because there's a process. You have to manually go through these to send them to the archives. And with that process, you can't do it automated because there'll be some discrepancies. For example, like twins, a lot of discrepancies happen with that because they have similar names. So someone manually has to go through and make sure the person is deceased
Okay.
or alive.
That's the question I have. At 125 years, you're just counting on them being dead. At
Yeah.
100 years, they can be alive.
Exactly right.
But don't you still have to have accuracy in the, and when you're filing these things, you still have to, twins are still twins.
Right.
Don't you, for the accuracy of the archives, wouldn't you still have to go through them?
Yeah, but they would be under our possession at that point. So to be able to send them, we have to go through.
Okay. Senator Gamble, have y'all talked about this issue at all on the funding issue?
No, sir, we have not.
We just saw the sub, so I think that would take some time.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, just one more question for either one of them. Why are we taking it to 100 then if it's?
Right. Last year in the code cleanup bill that was passed, it was changed then. And what we've seen since then is that the individuals who are involved in research, and Miss Elizabeth Olson's here today again, they're having issues getting access to these records. It's created a cumbersome process for our citizens. And so I had heard from a constituent of mine that's very involved in genealogy that this was making it prohibitive for them to do the work that they had been doing. This is a lot of research that they're doing with these records, repatriation for the remains of soldiers that are brought back to our country when they're trying to find next of kin. And so I was approached and asked if we simply would put it back to where it had been prior to last year, which is how we've always done it. And so that's basically how we got to House Bill 92 and the specification for the years. It had been that way in the code prior to last year.
It had been 100 years prior to last year.
Correct.
And we had 2 people that checked these files prior to last year.
Now that I don't know.
That would be a department.
That would be a department question.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
So before last year, it was 100 years.
Before, I believe it was 125. It's always been 125. No.
100, and we changed it to 125 last year, and now we're trying to change it back to 100.
Okay. I was just told that we will need 2 people, that staff time, to send it over to state archives because, like you said before, after 125, you kind of count on them being deceased.
I'm the one that has to leave, so I can't believe I'm asking all these questions. And that's where I'm stuck at. If 2 years ago, it was 100 years and you didn't require the 2 people, and then we moved it to 125 and you didn't hire the 2 people that you didn't have to start with, and now we're talking about moving it back to 100, why do you need the 2 people?
I'm going to have to find out a better answer for you. Like I said, we just saw the sub 10 minutes ago, so this fiscal impact is brand new as of 10 minutes ago. So I would be happy to.
So after listening to the testimony yesterday from your colleague, the concern was identity theft of people who were over the age of 100.
Right.
Am I correct in that birth certificates were not kept until, was it 1919? 1919.
Right.
So we're 102 years after that. So this is the first time this has been an issue.
Right.
So before 2019, there were no 100-year-olds with birth certificates.
Right.
Now we're at 2021, 100-year-olds have birth certificates. And now we have people living longer than they ever have before. So this is the issue. And Mr. Chairman, if I can continue.
Continue.
You need someone on staff to protect the living people's identities. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the staff would, in essence, before sending a birth certificate over for public, viewing and open records, they would have to verify that the person was in fact dead.
Yes.
And that's where you need the funding?
Yes. We need the staff and we need actual people.
And I'm assuming if people continue to live longer, 125 is going to be an issue at some point in the future.
Yes. So maybe I'll see you guys next year.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment, if we can, to assure that this funding would be available. And I don't know how we could do that, because without the funding, I just can't support this.
Yeah. Could I make a suggestion? Could we do this, since we're close? We're going to meet again on Thursday. Could y'all get this together and work this out? And I know we've got another someone to speak. Elizabeth wanted to speak. Elizabeth Olson. But if y'all could, I think what the best thing to do is to work it out and then let us do this on Thursday and here with that amendment so we can make this pass. Elizabeth, if you'd like to speak, I'll do that too. I want everybody to get a chance in on this, and I hope I'll live to be 100. 114, okay.
I'll try to be brief. My name's Elizabeth Olson. I'm a professional genealogist here in Georgia. I'm also a trained forensic genealogist, a genetic genealogist. I do historical research and legislative research as well. So the projects that I do aren't family trees. These are big projects. For instance, identifying the descendants of formerly enslaved. I do military repatriation projects. Remains of soldiers lost in the past wars are found, and then I'm tasked with identifying the surviving next of kin. I'm currently working on a couple of big projects for Gwinnett and Fulton for large park projects that they need research for. These records are where we deep dive to get this research. Georgia didn't record births or deaths until 1919 in the Georgia Code, and then they didn't do it. It took a few years to catch on. So most people that were born around 1919, they didn't have a birth certificate and didn't need one until Social Security came into play in 1936. So most of their birth certificates are after 1936 when they wanted to apply for Social Security, and they're delayed certificates, and those are filed with the year that they obtained those certificates. We deep dive in these records. In the statutes, it states in Georgia Code that when somebody in Georgia dies, their birth certificate is supposed to be stamped deceased. And it's also in the regulations for the Georgia Department of Health. So it should be being done. And we're not talking about a lot of people. In 2010, there was only 1,100 people in Georgia over the age of 100, and that was the closest stat that we could get. The 2020 census will be coming out soon. We couldn't get a stat from the Georgia Department of Public Health, and as we've been going through this process, we've not gotten any stats from the Georgia Department of Health about, you know, how many people are we talking about. Sadly, the rate in Georgia is declining. The average life expectancy for a Georgian right now is 76.8 years. So it's not climbing as fast as you might think. To my knowledge, we don't have anybody in Georgia that's 125. We likely don't have anybody that's 115. We've been waiting a long time to get access to these records. For research communities, especially the African American research community, sometimes these records are the only link that they've got to the past. And when we're doing this work, important work, we need access to these records. And there's no evidence to support that there's identity theft in these birth records. The records weren't open. They were supposed to be transferred. 2019 was the first year. They would have been transferred January 1 of 2020. They weren't transferred. They weren't open. The legislation was introduced in a SB 372, which was a cleanup bill. It had tons of stuff in it. So it was likely going to pass anyway. And we need access to these records to do the work that we can do. Thank you.
Okay, okay, Doug. If y'all can work this out between the two of you on the physical notes, and then anything you can do working with her, that would be fantastic as well. Does that fail?
I will do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
look for y'all on Thursday. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. No, no. We're 4:45. Yeah. All right. Oh, you want to meet? We can meet. No, we won't change that. Okay. All right. Well, good. We got Senator Roberts with us and a few others. All right. All right. Next is let's see. Get all of those together. Is HB 465, Representative Gullett, and this is. Penalties for false alarm, and I'm assuming you're working off of LC 364753S. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And thank you for being here, and we will look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Senator and Senators, Chairman and Senators. This is HB 465 LC 364753S. And this is a bill that says false alarm system, false alarm dispatch, when those occur, that the alarm system contractor shall not be responsible for the fines, and thus the alarm system contractor was actually responsible for the false alarm. So that would be faulty equipment, faulty installation. There's also a caveat, or if the false alarm company fails to follow Georgia law with enhanced call verification prior to dispatching. So today there's a code that says you need to make, as an alarm company, you need to make 2 calls on a false alarm. So if I get an alarm call, you make 2 calls to either the business or the residential person on file, and if those 2 calls aren't answered, then a dispatch is sent, police dispatch is sent. So if they can't prove that they did that through call logs, then they could also be responsible for paying the fines. The language that we have today is really compromised language between GMA and the industry, and I think they're both satisfied with this language. I think GMA is neutral to the bill, and this model legislation that's passed in a number of states: Florida, Tennessee, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. I think is making its way through a couple other legislatures. But I'm happy to answer any questions related to it.
Okay. Any questions? Senator Say. There you go. Okay, ladies first.
No, I was just saying, I was making notes and trying to write as well, but I heard you say GMA was, didn't have a problem with it.
That's correct.
Is it any industry that does? Or who is in opposition to it?
From an industry standpoint, I don't know of anyone who has a problem with it.
Fair enough, move on.
Okay. Anybody else? Senator Robinson?
Representative, you and I spoke about this a little prior, and I just want to clarify, is what your bill intent is that I have an alarm system at my house. If I have multiple false alarms, then the fine comes to me as opposed to the alarm system provider or whoever installed it, unless they did a faulty job installing it or some other action that would violate Georgia law, and then they would be charged for it?
That's correct. Exactly. And really, the fines are really to get you from. It's a burden on the police system, on the police departments. They don't want to do all these false alarms, and I think there's a number of those. I think the industry wants to handle those, and I think the police departments want to handle those. And this is and when you find the faulty party, that's how behavior changes. And so this is what this is at. It's changing user behavior. If I repeatedly don't answer my phone call at my residence because of false alarms, I should be fined. If it's the fault of the alarm company doing something incorrectly, they should be fined. That changes user behavior, and that's ultimately what we all want.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yes, Senator Jackson. Senator Jackson, you're on.
Thank you, Representative. Can you help me understand how would a person, like a layperson, so let's say it's my alarm, how would I be able to prove that the system was faulty or that it was a faulty error versus my response, my fault, that I tripped my own alarm or whatever? How am I, as the layperson, supposed to, and where is the burden of proof? Is the burden of proof on the alarm system to prove that their system was operating correctly, or is the burden of proof on the homeowner who has to prove that the alarm system didn't work properly?
Yeah, it's probably between the contract of that relationship, of the responsibility. But if I was never home, if there's no indication that I don't really know how to answer your question. So at the end of the day, I think when these municipalities are trying to hold someone accountable, it's going to have to be worked out. If I say, hey, it's my alarm system, I think you're going to have the alarm system come out and check to make sure that installation is working properly, that the things are working through the test scenarios. And I think that'd be your avenue for recourse. Is that, hey, I had you come check it. You fixed. They found a problem. They fixed it. But I think that'd be between you and your relationship with the alarm company.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Follow-up, okay. Go ahead.
So let me just rephrase that.
Mm-hmm.
Would the ticket default or the citation, would it default to the homeowner first, and therefore they would have to be the one who figured out all the problems, or does it default to the alarm company?
Yeah, and that's also going to depend on the municipality of what their role is. So we have most municipalities who fine the homeowner, and they don't fine the alarm company. And then we have a couple of municipalities who do fine the alarm company and not the homeowner. And so it's really going to depend on what their model is. But this is just basically putting some parameters around that to say you can only fine the alarm company if the alarm company is at fault, and if you're fining their alarm company. So alarm companies, there might not be at fault, and the people might not be responding to calls. This fixes that problem by you're fining the person at fault. So, but overwhelmingly, the number of fines are to the homeowner and not to the alarm companies.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? I feel like I tried to, but.
Okay, Senator C.
I just want to move do fast when appropriate, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion. All right, we got a second? Sure. Whoops, or do we have another question? I missed somebody? Or we have a speaker? We don't have a speaker signed up, correct? Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second. Got a second from Senator Robertson. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All opposed? No opposed?
Thank you. And Senator Robertson will be carrying this bill if we get it through rules.
I'm glad that you have the police carrying the alarm bill. I think that's a good thing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right. Next on the agenda is a hearing only for Representative Powell for HB 248. And we'll be working, it looks like, from LC 393024S. And you are, give me your name
Yes, sir. Good morning. Chuck McMullen,
Chuck.
presenting on behalf of Chairman Powell.
Okay.
My name is Chuck McMullen. I'm with Parker Pro Consulting, here on behalf of Red Speed USA, which is one of the vendors that's operating these programs currently throughout the state. And Mr. Chairman, I believe Chairman Powell actually wanted me to present House Bill 248 as passed the House, not the committee substitute, which is LC 392818.
Okay, and I don't know that that is in our folder. But
The same language is in the sub.
It's in the sub?
It's the underlying bill, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. And I've got the sub in front of me, too. So basically, what the bill 248 as passed, with just the underlying language from the bill as passed, if you look at page 2, lines 21 through 23, that's in subsection 1, paragraph 2 of a bill that you all enacted in 2018 to establish the automated traffic enforcement safety devices. This language simply strikes the school as a co-applicant and clarifies that the local governing body of the county or the municipality whose law enforcement agency shall be authorized to enforce the speed limit is the applicant before GDOT. And so currently, as the program is in place right now, a city or county may, it's permissive, not mandatory, decide to engage a vendor through a competitive RFP process. They enact ordinances to enforce the law. The city actually manages the program, enforces the program. Public enforcement officers actually are the ones that sign off on the actual citation, and then the vendor mails the citation to the individual who was caught speeding in a school zone. And right now, the GDOT permit is based on need. So we actually conduct traffic studies to determine if there is in fact speeding in front of a school zone, and then at which point there's an application before GDOT for the automated traffic enforcement device. And then at that point, under current law, it requires 2 signatures. It requires the school district and the city or the county. Unfortunately, the land in which the cameras are affixed is actually the right-of-way is with the city or county and not the school district. This law is kind of an evolution of the stop arm cameras on the school buses, and it was appropriate at that time for the school district to be included as an applicant since they owned the school buses. And now, as this program has evolved, we've determined that the actual cameras are on city or county property, and therefore the city or county should be the sole applicant for the GDOT permit. So, Mr. Chairman, if that concludes the presentation of the bill, I believe we have a number of folks that will wish to speak, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Let's see if we got any questions. Senator Robinson.
Yes, you used a term in there. What is in this legislation, give me your definition of a public enforcement officer.
That was a term. It's the enforcement mechanism in the city or county. So, for instance, it would be in City of Alpharetta, it would be the City of Alpharetta Police Department. If it's in the county, it would be in the Sheriff's Office.
Okay, so it would not be if a school district has a post-certified law enforcement. So
it's my understanding of law, they're not allowed to run radar.
Okay, yeah, well, public enforcement officer, though, is that in this legislation?
No, sir, that term's not. That was my term that I used.
Well,
Yes, sir.
all right.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Good. I just want to be careful.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I apologize. I misspoke.
You finished? Okay. Senator Hickman, number 14. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. McMullen.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McMullen and I met, I guess, several weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
And talked about this because we've got, I had in my district of Manual County, one of these machines that sits about that high off the ground, and it looks pretty good. My problem with it, and I shared this with Mr. McMullen, is that my understanding is when a police officer or a state patrol gets in their car every morning, they calibrate the machine, radar. When they get out in the afternoon, they calibrate the radar. And if there's a mistake during a period of time, Senator Robinson, then they will throw away all the tickets during that period of time. My understanding on this particular machine is this machine is only calibrated once a month. And so it's really up to the county or city of who it is at that point in time to decide whether those tickets are good tickets. So I'm familiar with it. I've talked to the law enforcement people down in our area about it. I've talked to Mr. McMullen. My biggest issue is the calibration and not calibrating it. And to be honest with y'all, I've had a lot of speeding tickets in my time. I've never got one I didn't deserve, so I'm not trying to get out of a speeding ticket situation. I'm just saying that the calibration needs to be in a shorter period of time.
I understand what the Senator's saying, and I have some concerns about the calibration too, but with the attorney sitting to my right, I'll say they may dismiss the tickets, but they do not throw them away. I want to be clear. Yeah.
All right, Senator Jackson.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Just have schools been hesitant or slow to sign these agreements? Is this the? I'm just unclear. And if so, if schools aren't signing these agreements, why aren't they signing them?
Sure. Well, Senator, thank you for the question. I certainly don't want to answer for them. There have been instances in 2 counties that we're aware of where the school district has not signed those. And so despite the fact that municipalities, their city councils have voted to enact one of these programs, they've been unable to do so, and I believe we have some folks that are willing to testify to that today.
So essentially, as a follow-up, this bill is a workaround to work around 2 school districts and 2 counties that have not signed on to these agreements. That's
Yes,
what
ma'am.
this bill does.
Well, that, and we've also have a number in front of permits in front of Fulton County, and they have signed them, but they have mentioned that they don't see the need for why to sign them since they're not running the program. They're not implementing the program.
Okay. I wanted to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
As far as revenue, I heard you say that these machines are on right-of-ways that can belong either to the schools or to the cities or to the counties. Where does revenue split between that? If for instance, if you put it in my yard, do I get the part of the revenue, or how does that work from that standpoint? But you're
Sure.
putting the machine in
So
a
the
right-of-way.
revenue is actually, thank you, Senator. The revenue is actually dealt with in subsection M of the statute, and I'll quote that. The money collected and remitted to the governing body pursuant to paragraph 1 of subsection B of this code section shall only be used by such governing body to fund local law enforcement or public safety initiatives. It's not, it's in the statute, subsection M. It's not in the bill.
Okay.
The bill before you, House Bill 248, does not seek to amend anything related to any money collected or remitted.
Okay, thank you.
And one last point, subsection F of the statute does allow the courts to dismiss any of these fines. And so, for instance, if there was an issue around calibration, there is a mechanism in place in the current statute that gives judicial discretion as to whether to enforce or dismiss that citation.
Do you know what the cost of a citation is? Is it set in statute?
Yes, sir, it is. That is in subsection B1, and the amount of such civil monetary, it's a civil monetary penalty, shall be $75 for a first violation and $125 for a second or any subsequent violation.
Do we have any idea of what kind of revenue this generates in total?
It really depends on the jurisdiction, and keep in mind too, within a school district, because we have to demonstrate need, not every school within a school district will have cameras if there's no need. There are certain schools, for instance, in Alpharetta, that the need is for to relax congestion, not to stop speeders. So they're only in each school district that's demonstrated the need. And so I don't have figures on that specifically. It's jurisdiction by jurisdiction. But I will say we have some data that demonstrates the program's work. For example, repeat offenders in Vidalia, it's only 2.8%, meaning only 2.8% of speeders receive a second citation. In Alpharetta, we've seen it at 2.5%, and in Thomasville, it's 1.5%. So these programs work.
Okay. We've got a pretty long list
Yes, sir.
of people who want to speak. We're going to hold them to 2 minutes. Gretchen Walton, I think, is the first one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Members of the
thank you.
committee.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We're going to try to keep this moving because of time there. And Ms. Gresham, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Gretchen Walton.
Gretchen Walton, thank you.
Yes, I'm the Compliance and Legislative Affairs Officer for Cobb County School District. Can y'all hear me? I'm sorry, I'm really small.
Thank you.
We, like other big districts, have a post-certified police force. We actually have 67 officers serving our 112 schools. We have 6 cities, jurisdictions, and 1 county jurisdiction in our school district. We, like a few of our other neighboring districts, are not the norm for school districts in Georgia. We're not against keeping kids safe, obviously. We're against taking school districts out of the decision. We're constantly battling for consistency. This bill would take away one mechanism for consistency and communication. City police and school district police should have a seamless relationship. This bill creates another gap. We ask that it be amended to exclude school districts that have their own post-certified police force. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okey-dokey. Any questions? Senator Robertson. Robertson.
Yes, ma'am, I remember y'all came before us, I think it was last session, and were wanting to put radar in
Yes, sir.
in your school district's patrol vehicles. Could you tell me what interest the school district has and where the gap would be if an immobile camera is placed on the right-of-way within a school district, or, excuse me, within a school zone?
So one example is that, as I said, we have 112 schools, right,
Correct.
over the 6 different city jurisdictions and the county jurisdiction. And so the gap is that, like, for example, 3 weeks ago, a city without working, like, didn't talk to us at all, passed a resolution, and I'm not great on the timeline, sorry, I saw it in the paper and had to call them. They just passed it without ever even talking to us, and so then the community, is like, what's going on, and we're having to chase after it, so that's the gap.
What type of resolution?
I'm sorry, they had a resolution to put in speed cameras and didn't talk to our police force, didn't communicate at all with us.
Okay, well, help me understand, where's the gap? I mean, a gap in communication?
Yes.
So if we reminded municipalities, or if the school district reminded municipalities that, hey, we are all in this together, we need to communicate, that would solve that problem. I'm trying to figure out where the gap is, why the school district should have to sign off or give approval to something being placed on the right-of-way within a municipality, whether it's in a school zone or a church zone or anything else.
So because we have it does cause confusion. We have our own ticketing force, we have our own police force, and so that it causes confusion for the community when we don't even know, like what just happened with this other city, one of our 6 cities, we didn't even know it was coming. They would contact us, and then we're going.
Does your
we don't
school
even know what you're
district
talking about.
write citations for speeding?
Not for speeding, but we do write citations, yes, sir.
What are the primarily purpose, what do you think the majority?
Trespass would be a good example.
Right. Okay, and which makes perfect sense because they're within the boundaries of the school. If it's on the right-of-way, that's what I'm trying to figure out. And listen, I'll tell you right now, I'm not a huge fan of these cameras to begin with. My home county has them, and I think last month they sent out 1,200 warnings and I think 600 citations. People in the country drive fast, except me. So I'm trying to figure out where the gap is because as a law enforcement officer, I understand gaps, and most of our gaps, and I think the gentleman in the room will tell you, are communication. But once we all understand each other's policies and procedures, things run pretty smooth, and we just talk to each other and try not to go in their yard without letting them know we're there. So I'm trying to understand the gap. But
so I think one of the big gaps is partially when they say, oh, it's on the right of way. Well, I mean, there's a school there, right? Like when you drive down Atlanta Road, there's Campbell Middle School, and it doesn't seem like it belongs to someone else. Does that make sense?
No, it belongs to the citizens, and the school is within the municipality. The municipality is not within the school. And so my concern is that the school district, y'all don't run radar. People speeding through school zones is a very serious infraction. I'm not sure of any law enforcement agency right now that is fully staffed and able to allocate those resources. But that road and that right-of-way belong to the citizens who send their children to school within your district, but who also live within that district, and who also pay taxes to the municipal law enforcement agency or the county law enforcement agency and stuff like that. I guess I get a little frustrated when what is the basic service that must be provided to every citizen who pays taxes all of a sudden becomes a tug of war or a battle for power. In Columbus, where I policed for my entire career, our district has a post-certified law enforcement agency, as does our university and our tech schools. So, and everybody seems to get along great. So maybe I'm just a little taken aback, but thank you for answering my question.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Tom Gill and Georgia Municipal Association, but we'll let you tell us that too. Tom.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tom Gale. I'm the Director of Governmental Relations for the Georgia Municipal Association. This is common sense legislation. It would allow cities and counties to decide on using another tool to enforce violations, speeding violations in their jurisdictions. Our stance is that we should let the educators educate and focus on their core duty. Let the law enforcement personnel focus on enforcement. This is about slowing people down in school zones and saving lives. GMA is wholeheartedly in support of this legislation. Be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay. One question. Okay.
Mr. Gale, do you oppose school districts having police departments?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, Tim Cole. Tim. And you'll tell us your name and where you're from. Thank you, sir.
Good morning.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
allowing me to speak today. I'm Tim Gould. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem from the city of Smyrna. I also chair our city's education committee. Ward 6 is the home for Campbell Middle School, largest middle school in Cobb County. And I'm also the proud parent of 2 kids that attend Campbell High School, the largest high school in Cobb County. One of the major things we hear from our residents every day is about traffic and pedestrian safety, particularly around our schools. It's an issue that we take seriously, and we work awfully hard to impact that problem. Key responsibility for us as city council folks is to help ensure the safety of our residents, right? With traffic and pedestrian safety, it's the number one issue I hear. We're not unique. These issues are all across the state, but we are working hard to impact the problem. We've invested significantly in sidewalks, traffic calming devices, ramped up our police force around traffic enforcement, and we continue focusing on changing driver behavior. In 2019, we petitioned Cobb County Schools to allow us to use these speed detection devices, and we were denied. Don't really understand why we were denied. Could have been a communication issue, but regardless, we've had 2 serious incidences that raise the issues in our city. Police officer Ewing was tragically killed last year by a drunk driver. These accidents happen. As a response to that, we've again put more resources and focus into addressing the issue within the city. And then 1 month ago, unfortunately, a pedestrian was struck and killed in the school zone at Campbell Middle School. Crossing, doing all the right things, crossing the crosswalk, stopped and all that. Don't know if the speed zone cameras would have affected that or changed that outcome. Don't know. But we do know these cameras are being effective across the state, and we just want a chance to use this technology in the city of Smyrna. So I really appreciate your support for this bill. Allow us to work with GDOT and help protect our kids and families in the city of Smyrna.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Senator Jackson?
Thank you for coming. Just a real quick question. Have you all been able to have a sit down with the school district, with Cobb County School District and the city of Smyrna to try to work this out? That's kind of the way we operate around here, is we try to get the parties together and to work things out, and we send them back out in the hall to do that. So I'm just curious, have you all tried to sit down together to work this out?
So I was on a telephone call with the superintendent in 2019, and we had a conversation there, and it was a challenging conversation. It wasn't clear to me when I got off the phone what the objection was, and it's still not. To give the district credit, though, they have put resources in front of Campbell Middle School. There's one resource office there in the morning and the afternoon, and it's helpful. But as was stated earlier, they have 112 schools across the county. They don't have enough resource officers. It just can't be done, right? So this is a technology that just makes sense. We are more than willing to work with the district. We do on other areas, but this is one that it's important to us.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next, Mike Beller. All right. Thank you, sir.
I'll try to talk fast. Assistant Chief Mike Beller with the City of Shambley Police Department. Senators, it's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the important issue of the safety of children in our communities. I knew that we had speeding and other traffic complaints in 3 out of the 5 schools in the City of Shambley, and I asked for a speed study at those 3 locations. When the results came in, I was surprised at the scope of the problem that was documented in the study. In one day, there were 1,489 violators speeding through the school zone at Dresden Elementary, and that's only counting the ones that are speeding by more than 10 miles an hour. There were 548 violations at Shambley High School and 246 at St. Pius X. My city council was the first one in DeKalb County to approve a school zone speed camera program in December 2019 by unanimous vote, well before COVID hit. Since then, I have been unable to get an audience with or an official response from the DeKalb School Board. You may remember that the school with the least number of speeders was St. Pius X, the private school. Their school board promptly approved the program, and although it took a few months for DOT approval, we recently started speed camera enforcement in their school zone. So this is a problem. It's not just DeKalb, it's other counties. And to answer the question that was asked earlier, I don't know what their problem with. They won't give us an audience. They won't tell us anything. I've actually, I sent an email to every member of the board and the superintendent pleading on behalf of the police department just for an audience, and I got no response. I don't know that they're opposed on a principle. They just won't respond. So in conclusion, the legislature created a process for police departments to use speed camera enforcement to protect children from drivers speeding through school zones. And I've been working within that process for over a year without success. So I'm able to address it at the private school where most of them ride to school. But I've got Dresden Elementary in a low-income area, Shallowford and 85, and you've got young kids, and 80% of them are walking to school. And the speeds on Shallowford Road at I-85 are very high. And my department is more than 10% down in manpower right now. And I can't put officers in that school zone every day. So this bill is my best hope of a solution to this problem, and I'm asking for your full support.
Okay. Senator Hatch.
Thank you for coming to testify today. When you said that this has been implemented in front of St. Pius?
Yes, sir.
Have you seen a decrease in speeding since the implementation?
It's significant. We were required to do a 30-day warning period, and so it started out. It was never as high as the speed study showed, because just the signs that say photo speed enforcement that we put up on both ends, that had an immediate effect right there. The 30-day notices, the 30-day warning period, a lot of those warnings went out. What I was told when we were meeting with vendors is that you can expect an immediate 50% drop off in the number of violations, and then it just keeps going down from there. So yes, the goal is not revenue. The goal is to reduce the speed. And like they said earlier, once somebody gets a citation in the mail, they remember that area and they slow down, at least in that area.
So if I can ask one more question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So I understand the intent here is more of a deterrent to slow people down. And I think you may have answered my question with the 30-day warning, but are these properly marked? I mean, because I know when I'm driving, if I see a police car on the side of the road, I'm slowing down. You know, even if I'm going the speed limit, it's just a natural reaction to slow down. And I guess, do these cameras have the same effect? Are they visible? Do people know what they are?
On each end, we've got the signs that say photo camera, speed enforcement ahead, and then the DOT approves the permit. It took them probably more than 6 months to review and approve our permit at St. Pius. So one of the things there, they made us put in additional lighting at the school zone, flashing lights. That's part of the DOT approval process, is to make sure that we're giving the citizen every chance, every notice that this is an area where we're going to do speed camera enforcement.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I had one question, just curious, age segment, because these are schools. What's the percentage of young people, I'll say under 20 students versus parents? Is there a statistical number there from the standpoint that I know you got some students that are driving in if they're high school? You got any kind of numbers on that?
I don't have any numbers on that, sir. I can tell you that the one school where I've got it, we met with the principal. We told them 30 days in advance, even before the warning period started. So they sent emails out to all parents and staff, hey, this is about to start, be careful. And so I think they've all gotten the message.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let's see, Billy Grogan. And if you'll identify yourself and who you're with.
Yes, good morning. My name's Billy Grogan. I'm the Chief of Police with the Dunwoody Police Department. We're also located in DeKalb County, and I won't go into everything that Mike just so eloquently said, but we're in the same position that they are. We've repeatedly spoke with particularly the school police chief for DeKalb County Schools in an effort to get them to approve the process. Our council has already approved it for 3 school zones where we have speeding problems. And I can tell you, as a police chief, one of the biggest complaints we get on a routine basis is speeding. That comes from citizens all the time, and a lot of times that's in school zones. And like Mike said, most police departments unfortunately don't have the resources to put police officers physically in every school zone that we have in our jurisdictions. So this legislation is extremely important, and we hope that you'll support the movement of the legislation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Gary Yander? Did I?
Close enough. I'm Chief Gary Andor from Brookhaven Police Department.
Okay, thank
Good morning, Chairman, and committee members. I won't expand upon what was said already either. We're here basically as a result of the request from parents for the safety of their kids. They're always calling our police department asking for officers to be at the schools, to keep cars from blocking intersections, and also to keep cars from speeding through intersections. We've got about 8 or 9 schools, a combination of public and private. Out of all the schools that we did the studies on, only 3 of them we're looking at putting them in. One of the private schools already signed the agreement already. That's St. Martin's. We also have Montgomery Elementary School and Cross Keys High School, which are the main problems. Cross Keys High School, I think we had over 1,200 violations in one day, and we did 2 test dates, and they really didn't decrease the 2 test dates. You know, as far as handling the school, we get along great with the Cab School Police. We cooperate with them all the time. They know their jurisdiction. We know our jurisdiction. We have to handle the accidents that take place in the schools, in the school areas. So that's one of the reasons we're pushing this. We had some serious accidents by Montgomery Elementary School and a couple by Cross Keys High School. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we ask you to support this.
Okay. No questions. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let's see. John, is it Lund? John Lord? Georgia Electric Life. Okay. Maybe something wrong one. Okay. Elizabeth Olson. Nope. Okay, that's it. Okay, then that's it. Okay. Have we got anybody else that we've missed? Okay, we've got everybody then. Okay, this was a hearing only, so we've got that portion together. Appreciate everybody being here, and good information, and we will dismiss. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.